In the forgotten hollows of Appalachia, where the mountains swallow secrets whole, one family dared to defy the laws of man, medicine, and nature itself. Their story begins not with love, but with blood, a bloodline bound so tightly it threatened to collapse under its own weight. Doctors warned them of disaster, neighbors whispered of curses. But the Thornwick clan believed they were chosen, that their strength, their survival, even their strange gifts, depended on keeping outsiders away. What began as an old man's command soon spiraled into something darker, something that science could not explain. Because in Milfield Hollow, the night didn't belong to the living. It belonged to the bloodline. And on a cold November night in 1987, when screams echoed across the valley, the world outside finally caught a glimpse of what had been hidden for generations. This isn't just the tale of a family. It's the chilling account of what happens when tradition collides with evolution, and the terrifying price of keeping a legacy pure. If stories like this pull you in, strange histories, hidden truths, and the kind of mysteries you can't look away from, then you're in the right place. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with a friend who loves a good dark story. It helps us keep digging up the tales most people are too afraid to tell. And trust me, what's coming next is a journey you'll want to follow until the very last word. The Appalachian Mountains hold more than coal and timber. They cradle stories too strange to repeat outside a whisper. In Milfield Hollow, an isolated valley of weather-beaten cabins, the Thornwick family ruled with unshakable authority and chilling secrets. Time in Milfield Hollow seemed paused, as though clocks wound differently there. No television static or neon signs reached this place, only men, tradition, and the iron shadow of a bloodline that no outsider dared question. At the center of the family compound stood Cornelius Thornwick, an aging patriarch carved from mountain stone. His 6'4" frame, pale eyes, and frost-etched beard commanded a respect born not of love, but of dread. Cornelius carried with him a doctrine: the Thornwick line must never weaken. Outsiders with their diluted veins and fragile constitutions were considered contaminants. In this hollow, the blood had to remain strong, sharp, and untouched by foreign names. Generations of Thornwicks lived on Cedar Ridge, their cabins stitched into the mountainside like scars across rock. Each building carried whispers, fires that burned too long, storms that rose without warning, animals that moved as though following unseen orders. Neighbors from the next valley down swore the Thornwicks were older than the ridge itself. Records spoke of arrival in the late 1800s. But men whispered they had always been here, drawn by something the mountain gave them. Children of the hollow avoided the ridge altogether. If one strayed too close, they felt it. The silence of the trees, the unnatural stillness of air, the sensation that the ground itself was listening beneath their boots. Cornelius's eldest son, Jeremiah, served as enforcer of order. A mountain of a man. His fists spoke before his tongue, ensuring every Thornwick obeyed without hesitation. His word carried Cornelius's authority like an echo through stone. Beside Jeremiah stood Marcus, only 16 but with eyes that pierced like shards of winter. He hunted, trapped, and commanded the woods as if the land itself had bent to his will since birth. Marcus unsettled even the hardest men of the hollow. His stare lingered too long. His laughter ended too sharp. Outsider boys crossed the ridgeline only once, never twice, unwilling to feel that gaze again. Younger Thornwick sons carried less presence, but even they were marked by the pale eyes and premature silver streaks in their hair. Traits outsiders found unsettling were badges of pride among the Thornwick clan. Cornelius believed each son carried a spark of something ancient. He claimed the mountain spoke through their veins, rewarding purity with gifts outsiders would never understand. To him, diluted blood meant betrayal of that covenant. The compound reflected this belief. Animal skulls crowned fence posts, carved sigils marked trees, and herb gardens were planted in unnatural patterns. Outsiders called it superstition. Thornwicks called it alignment with the ridge's hidden order. For all his rigid rule, Cornelius was not merely feared, he was revered. Men of the Hollow whispered he could halt storms with a raised hand, or that wolves shadowed his path as silent guardians of his will. When darkness fell, light never escaped from the Thornwick cabins like in normal homes. Instead, strange chanting echoed through the forest, rhythmic voices vibrating through the trees, murmuring about purity, strength, and promises owed to the mountain. Yet even in this tightly bound family, unease stirred. Whispers of unnatural bonds, of traditions that pushed beyond moral law, spread like smoke. Outsiders who dared suggest interference were reminded that the sheriff himself answered to Thornwick coin. By 1987, the Thornwick dynasty stood at a crossroads. Cornelius believed the bloodline was thinning, too many branches grafted with outsider names. He resolved to restore strength, even if it meant breaking every law of man and nature. And so, on Cedar Ridge, with winter pressing closer and voices chanting louder each night, the foundation for something unimaginable was laid. The Thornwick bloodline was about to awaken a truth no outsider was prepared to face. Dr. Harrison Webb had served Milfield Hollow for 20 years, tending injuries from logging accidents and stubborn illnesses alike. He was trusted by miners, hunters, and hermits because, unlike outsiders, he understood the Hollow's silence. When a message reached him requesting secrecy, he felt the weight immediately. It wasn't ordinary sickness that pulled him toward Cedar Ridge that night. It was something darker, whispered through static on the mountain line. The road twisted like a serpent, dirt swallowing his tires as headlights carved through black forest. Each turn revealed shadows too tall, trees leaning closer as though guarding the secrets he was about to confront. At the compound edge, Jeremiah waited. His broad frame blocked the lantern glow behind him. He said little, only gestured toward a secluded cabin where Cornelius himself awaited, with men whose faces showed neither welcome nor hostility. Inside, the patriarch spoke with absolute certainty. The Thornwick bloodline, he said, was weakening. Too many outside names had stained the tree. It was time for tradition to bind the line together again, permanently. Dr. Webb pressed for clarity, though dread had already coiled in his gut. Cornelius explained that one of his sons, Marcus, was to be united with another Thornwick brother. The bloodline would remain unbroken, untarnished. The physician felt his breath shorten. He knew the consequences of such unions, studied in journals and recorded in charts. Inbreeding concentrated recessive defects. Generations of it risked collapse. Stillbirths, deformities, madness. It wasn't superstition, it was biology. He tried to reason with Cornelius. He spoke of genetic risk, of damage to children yet unborn, but the patriarch's eyes gleamed with conviction. Ordinary rules bind outsiders, Cornelius declared. We are bound by something older. Jeremiah slammed a ledger onto the table. Inside were records spanning decades, births, deaths, strange notations of unusual abilities. Dr. Webb's hand shook as he read of Thornwick's sons who healed faster, who resisted disease unnaturally. The doctor's training waged war with his senses. He had seen unusual health patterns in isolated communities before, but these claims, supported by precise entries, painted a picture of men growing stronger through centuries of selective blood. When Marcus entered, the air itself seemed to tighten. At 16, his presence felt unnatural. His gray eyes carried a sharpness beyond his years, and when he spoke, his words held authority beyond youth. "Doctor," Marcus said evenly, "outsider charts cannot measure Thornwick's strength. You see weakness in numbers. We see power in unity. Watch, and you'll understand why the mountain chose us to remain pure." He pressed his hand against the table. Frost spread outward like veins of white fire, creeping across wood until Dr. Webb's medical bag itself shivered beneath the cold. The room breathed silence, broken only by Cornelius's calm voice. "This is our inheritance," the patriarch explained. "When Thornwick blood runs true, gifts awaken. Outsiders call them mutations, but here we call them blessings. Why dilute power when the mountain has proven purity yields strength?" Dr. Webb stared at the frost still clinging to his instruments. His rational mind screamed impossibility, yet his eyes betrayed him. Something beyond science stirred here, rooted in blood, mountain, and ritual. He felt outmatched. He urged them again to reconsider. "Nature balances through diversity," he pleaded. "Bloodlines collapse when they close too tightly." Cornelius only shook his head, speaking as though addressing scripture. "Our balance is with the mountain, not with outsiders." Outside, wind howled like a beast circling the cabin. Jeremiah lit another lantern, its flame bending unnaturally, though no draft stirred. "The hollow protects what belongs to it," he muttered, his words carrying both warning and certainty. Dr. Webb left that night shaken. The road down the ridge felt longer, darker, each turn whispering of a choice he would soon face. Report them and risk the mountain's wrath, or remain silent and watch corruption spread. In his hands rested medical journals, genetic charts, and a burden heavier than any case before. For this was no ordinary diagnosis. This was the collision of science and something older, a warning whispered through blood. By late autumn, the compound on Cedar Ridge took on an atmosphere of preparation. Lanterns burned late, fires roared higher, and the Thornwick men moved with purpose, building toward a gathering that outsiders would never be allowed to witness. The air carried weight those nights. Smoke hung strangely low, curling around the ridge as if reluctant to drift away. Even the owls ceased their calls, as though the forest itself sensed something unnatural was approaching. Dr. Webb arrived under invitation, though no part of him felt welcome. Jeremiah met him with that same silent stare, offering neither greeting nor explanation. The compound pulsed with energy, like a heart before eruption. At the center, Cornelius stood by a stone altar erected from mountain rock. He addressed his clan with words both commanding and ritualistic. "Tonight," he declared, "we restore strength. The Thornwick line binds itself anew beneath mountain witness." Around the clearing, nearly 30 Thornwick men assembled. Pale-eyed, silver-streaked, they formed a circle tight with reverence. No outsiders had ever seen them all gathered, each one carrying the same otherworldly presence etched deep into blood. The youngest boys played with fire as though it were a toy. Flames danced between bare hands, bending and flickering without pain. Others whispered to wolves lingering at the tree line, animals obeying commands like trained companions. Dr. Webb tried to dismiss what he saw as illusion, tricks of torchlight and suggestion. Yet his heart betrayed him, hammering harder with each impossible display. This was no carnival. This was heritage manifesting before his eyes. Marcus entered the clearing draped in robes too old for his years. His expression remained cold, yet behind it lay certainty. He took his place by the altar, frost forming around his boots as if summoned. Cornelius lifted his hands skyward, chanting in rhythms older than scripture. The clan responded, voices uniting into a chorus that seemed to vibrate through bone. It was more than sound. It was resonance, binding men into singular intent. Dr. Webb stepped forward, raising his voice against the chant. He spoke of genetics, of science, of the dangers that unions of blood would create. Yet his words fell into silence, smothered beneath belief older than medicine. Cornelius replied without anger, only certainty. "You see numbers, doctor. We see legacy. You fear collapse. But we witness awakening. This is not weakness. It is evolution. The mountain itself affirms our path." His eyes glowed with authority. Marcus laid his palms on the altar. Frost spread outward in intricate geometric shapes, glowing faintly blue. The patterns etched across stone and ground alike, radiating with a beauty both breathtaking and horrifying. Webb's arguments froze in his throat. Other Thornwick men followed suit, demonstrating their inherited gifts, sparks of light, bursts of unnatural strength, and eerie communion with animals. The circle glowed with impossible energy, each display a testament to their belief in purity preserved. The doctor's protests faltered. He had expected secrecy, perhaps whispers of strange tradition, but this was spectacle, deliberate and unashamed. These men weren't hiding. They were celebrating the very thing outsiders feared most about them. Jeremiah approached Webb, whispering low enough only he could hear. "You came seeking truth. Now you see it. This family isn't bound by your science. We are bound by something deeper. Try to stop it, and the mountain answers." As the chanting reached crescendo, Marcus spoke with chilling calm. "The bloodline will endure, unbroken. Tonight we pledge to the mountain, and no man, doctor, or lawman will alter what has already been chosen." The clearing erupted in unified cries, their voices merging with wind that roared suddenly fierce. Animals howled in harmony, fire blazed taller, and the ridge itself seemed alive. Dr. Webb stood paralyzed, caught between disbelief and undeniable proof. When silence finally returned, the Thornwicks dispersed with ritualistic grace. Webb remained near the altar, staring at frozen patterns etched across stone. The mountain had answered their call, and he realized science alone could never untangle this bloodline's mystery. The first signs of change appeared quietly, like cracks forming beneath still ice. Marcus began to speak less, yet his presence weighed heavier. Men noticed, though none dared question the force growing inside him. At night, his cabin glowed faintly through shuttered windows. Not from lantern or fire, but from something deeper. When Jeremiah checked, he found Marcus standing in silence, frost shimmering across his skin like armor. Cornelius declared it a blessing, proof that the mountain had chosen its heir. The old patriarch claimed their bloodline had been preparing generations for this exact moment, when gifts would awaken in forms beyond imagining. Other Thornwick sons whispered of new sensations. Hearing the forest breathe, sensing storms before clouds formed, feeling strength surge in waves. Each day, the ridge carried more unease, as though the land itself anticipated transformation. Dr. Webb returned under pretense of medical concern. He carried instruments, charts, journals, yet what he recorded defied categories. Pulse irregular, body temperature unnaturally low, and blood readings outside human range. Marcus was shifting beyond science. One evening, Webb witnessed frost patterns emerging on Marcus's skin without touch. Geometric designs pulsed with blue light, running across veins like living tattoos. They glowed brighter whenever his brothers stood near, amplifying their own strange abilities. Cornelius explained without hesitation, "This is the inheritance of purity. Each son born closer to the bloodline's core carries more power. Marcus awakens first, but others will follow. Together, they will shape what comes next." Skepticism gnawed at Webb, yet his eyes betrayed him. He saw Marcus melt ice with a single breath, command fire to dim, and silence howling winds with one raised hand. No hallucination could mimic such precision. The compound transformed into a training ground. Fires were arranged in circles for trials. Stones became altars for demonstrations. The Thornwick men gathered nightly, testing their growing abilities, pushing themselves further under Cornelius's watchful gaze. Some discovered heightened senses, hearing whispered words from far distances or spotting movement in pitch darkness. Others manipulated animals, drawing wolves from the forest with nothing more than steady stares and gestures carved from tradition. Yet it was Marcus who eclipsed them all. His frost bent into perfect shapes, spirals that carved through air without melting. He claimed the mountain itself whispered patterns, guiding his hands like a sculptor shaping destiny. Dr. Webb's notes filled faster than his mind could process. He sketched diagrams, recorded temperatures, marked phenomena. But each page made him feel smaller. He was charting a future that biology had never prepared him for. The clan's rituals deepened. They chanted longer, burned offerings, and carved new sigils into trees. Their voices vibrated with unity, their bodies humming with energy. Outsiders would never understand, but within the ridge, faith solidified. Jeremiah told Webb bluntly, "You cannot stop what has begun. The mountain does not ask, it commands. Marcus isn't simply gifted. He is awakening into something beyond man, and soon the bloodline will follow." Webb wrestled with his oath as physician. His duty demanded intervention, yet his fear silenced him. What law could reach here? What science could argue against living proof glowing across a boy's frost-marked skin? Each night, Marcus's glow spread further. Entire cabins illuminated without fire, vines outside froze yet blossomed, streams turned silent beneath sheets of unnatural ice. The hollow had shifted, bent around a presence it could not deny. The awakening no longer belonged to Marcus alone. It belonged to every Thornwick man on Cedar Ridge. Their voices carried louder, their presence heavier, their bond unshakable. The mountain had answered, and its bloodline was rising. And as Dr. Webb left that night, he knew the world beyond the hollow remained blind. Science, law, faith, none of it prepared humanity for what was emerging on Cedar Ridge, the birth of something entirely new. Dr. Webb could no longer dismiss what he had witnessed. He turned to science with desperate determination, as if calculations and charts might cage the unexplainable. Yet the mountain seemed always one step beyond his instruments. He borrowed equipment from colleagues, disguising his intentions as rural health studies. Microscopes, centrifuges, and genetic kits filled his small office. Each test he ran on Thornwick blood yielded results that defied accepted biological frameworks. Cells regenerated with unnatural speed, resisting decay long past normal limits. Hemoglobin carried oxygen 3 times more efficiently than baseline humans. Webb documented with shaking hands, realizing these men no longer fit standard definitions of humanity. The genetic sequences astonished him further. Strands rearranged themselves during observation, rewriting code like living scripts. Webb muttered aloud that it was as though the blood itself was still evolving, shaping new possibilities before his eyes. Cornelius permitted the research, though not from curiosity. He wanted proof that Thornwick purity surpassed outsiders. His sharp gaze pressed Webb deeper, forcing the doctor to confront his role, chronicler or opponent of something beyond human law. Jeremiah remained close during examinations, his bulk a reminder that resistance carried consequences. Yet even he seemed fascinated as Webb's charts stacked higher, each page confirming that Thornwick blood diverged from everything medical journals had ever described. Marcus submitted samples willingly, though his pale stare made Webb uneasy. "Write your numbers," he told the doctor. "But numbers cannot cage the mountain. You will see the truth written in ice, not charts." The doctor pressed forward, compiling comparisons to isolated genetic cases across the world. None matched. Where others showed weakness, Thornwick blood revealed resilience. Where others collapsed under inbreeding, this clan seemed to gather strength. Still, Webb warned them, power carried price. Mutations could unravel, leading to collapse of mind and body. Cornelius dismissed the warning, insisting each generation had proven stronger. "Do you see weakness here, doctor? Look again." And Webb did. He watched men split fire with bare hands, whisper to owls perched silently, and survive wounds that should cripple. Each demonstration chipped away at his rational defense, leaving him more disturbed than convinced. His journals grew into tomes of contradiction. Data supporting impossibility, science documenting miracles. He struggled with conscience. Should he expose the Thornwicks, knowing no authority would dare confront them? Or should he preserve their secret as witness? At night he dreamed of frost spirals etched into skin, of eyes glowing pale, of forests bending under voices. His waking hours blurred into visions, his sanity fraying beneath pressure to understand what was unexplainable. One evening, Cornelius presented Webb with an ancient ledger filled with handwritten records. Generations of births, abilities, and deaths covered pages like scripture. "This is our science," Cornelius said. "Yours is numbers, ours is proof." The ledger revealed patterns undeniable. Each union of Thornwick blood yielded stronger sons, stranger gifts, and longer lifespans. Outsider unions resulted in sickness, weakness, or mediocrity. Webb realized the clan had documented a century-long experiment with chilling precision. Jeremiah leaned close as Webb turned pages. "You came to measure us, but maybe the mountain measures you. Ask yourself, Doctor, what does it want you to see?" His words lingered heavier than stone walls. Webb recognized the danger of obsession, yet he could not stop. He drafted reports he never sent, fearing ridicule, fearing reprisal. His conscience warred between duty to truth and survival in a hollow ruled by silence. The deeper he studied, the clearer it became. Thornwick bloodline was not merely human adaptation. It was divergence, perhaps destiny. Science clashed with mountain law, but Webb stood at the fault line, helpless to reconcile either side. And in the glow of frost-lit cabins, surrounded by men whose veins hummed with impossible inheritance, he understood the stakes. Science had found its limits here. The mountain had claimed dominion, and Webb was caught in between. Winter descended heavy on Milfield Hollow. Snow smothered the valley, burying roads and isolating the ridge. Yet within the Thornwick compound, activity grew fevered. Fires blazed, chants echoed, and anticipation pulsed like a living heartbeat. The solstice night approached. To the Thornwick men, this was no mere season. It was alignment when mountain and blood spoke with clearest voice. Cornelius declared the night chosen for binding, for awakening the next chapter. Dr. Webb trudged through snow toward the compound, every step weighed with dread. He carried no instruments this time, only his witness. He knew science could no longer measure what he was about to face. The clearing blazed with torches. Stone altars glimmered beneath ice, carved with sigils older than memory. Around them, Thornwick men stood in silent circle, their pale eyes reflecting firelight like mirrors of winter stars. Marcus entered, robed in frost-lined garments. His presence bent the air, breath crystallizing into visible streams. He raised his hands and snow answered, falling in slow spirals, obeying rhythm unseen, shaping patterns across the ground. Cornelius spoke with thunderous authority. "Tonight, the Thornwick bloodline fulfills its promise. Tonight, we unite with the mountain and carry our strength into eternity. No man beyond this ridge may alter what begins now." Chants began, low and steady, vibrating through ribs like distant drums. Wolves prowled the perimeter, eyes glowing faintly blue. Ravens lined the treetops, silent and watchful, as though summoned to bear witness alongside the clan. Jeremiah stepped forward, offering his blood into the snow. Others followed, slicing palms with stone blades, letting droplets freeze into sigils. The ground shimmered faintly, glowing as if mountain veins themselves had been cut open. Marcus laid his hands upon the altar. Frost surged outward, spiraling into geometric mandalas that pulsed with light. The entire clearing glowed blue, transforming night into something resembling daybreak crafted from frozen fire. Dr. Webb trembled, torn between awe and horror. He whispered that this was impossible, yet his breath formed crystals in rhythm with the chanting. He realized the mountain itself had become part of their ceremony. Cornelius lifted his arms higher, declaring Marcus the vessel of purity. "The bloodline flows unbroken. The mountain answers through him. Our strength is eternal, His voice echoed not just in air, but in marrow. Marcus's glow intensified, skin etched with frost symbols shifting across muscle like living script. His breath fell silent, yet wind howled louder. Trees bent inward as if bowing, their branches shedding snow in reverence. Other Thornwick men mirrored him. Flames bent, animals stirred, frost carved through ground. The clearing became alive, a cathedral of natural forces reshaped under blood and will. Dr. Webb knew no sanctuary beyond this circle. Jeremiah whispered to him, voice steady despite chaos. "You came to warn. You see now why warning is wasted. We are not breaking law. We are becoming law." His eyes glimmered with conviction. The ceremony peaked. Frost mandalas pulsed brighter, forming luminous arcs that leapt into sky. Snow swirled in controlled spirals above the altar, forming a dome of light. Within it, Marcus stood radiant, unyielding, unearthly. Webb realized the truth. Science had ended where the ridge began. These men were not anomalies. They were transition. Humanity, twisted or chosen, was stepping beyond. His pen could record but never restrain. When dawn finally cut through gray sky, the clearing lay transformed. Frost gardens bloomed with crystalline vines, wolves slept at men's feet, and the Thornwick bloodline stood reborn. Cornelius spoke softly. "The mountain has spoken. We remain." As Webb left the ridge for the final time, snow crunching under boots, he reflected. Some truths cannot be stopped. Some bloodlines defy collapse. And sometimes, survival means surrendering to mysteries too vast for reason.